Peter Pan, adapted by Kate Hannigan. In the corner house on a quiet street in London lived three children, Wendy, John, and Michael Darling. The children loved to tell stories of the brave Peter Pan. The Peter Pan! Woohoo! Yeah. It's a little bit windy today. And brave Peter Pan in a magical place called Neverland. Their mother believed Peter Pan was the spirit of youth. Wendy, John, and Michael believed Peter Pan was a real person, and they made him the hero of their games. Peter Pan to the rescue, the boys would shout out in their pretend sword fights. Peter Pan liked to visit the Darlings' house. The children believed in him. He would sit outside the nursery window and listen to Wendy tell wonderful stories about him. Peter Pan? Poppycock. I do not know what poppycock means. It's a weird word, said Wendy's father. He was tired of Wendy's wild stories and said it was time she moved into her own room. It was to be her last night in the nursery with her little brothers. Sooner or later, people would have to grow up, Father said. But Wendy didn't want to grow up. It's so windy today. You know what? I'm just gonna put it right here in my leg. You know what? I'm gonna just do this so it won't fly away. When the children fell asleep that night, Peter Pan and Tinker Bell sneaked into the house. They were searching for Peter's shadow. Peter and Tinker Bell looked all over the room. Finally, Peter went to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Out jumped his shadow. He chased it around the room until it woke up Wendy. She was excited to see Peter Pan. She pulled out a needle and a thread and sewed his shadow to the tips of Peter's toes. This way Peter Pan would never lose his shadow again. Peter was very upset to hear it wouldn't be Wendy's last night in the nursery. He wanted to whisk her off to Neverland, where no one ever had to grow up. Wendy and her brothers wondered how they could get to Neverland. Peter said they would fly there, of course, and with a sprinkling of pixie dust from Tinker Bell, they were ready. Come on, everybody, he said. We're off to Neverland! Peter Pan led the way as Wendy, John, and Michael soared over the city of London. They flew high above the rooftops, among the clouds, and off on to Neverland. Waiting for Peter Pan in the waters off Neverland was a pirate ship commanded by the terrible Captain Hook. He waited to find Peter's hideaway and capture him. I'm Hook. I am Hook. Ah, ha, ha. Hook didn't like Peter Pan, but even worse, he displeased that the crocodile that had sunk his teeth into him in a fight with Peter Pan long ago. Whenever Hook heard a tick-tock, 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 he knew the hungry crocodile was lurking somewhere in the water nearby. Yeah, it's so windy. When Peter and his friends reached Neverland, they perched on a cloud overlooking the island. Peter pointed out his favorite place, the Mermaid Lagoon. Suddenly there was a bang! Captain Hook had fired a cannonball right at Peter Pan. Peter told Tinker Bell to take Wendy, John, and Michael to safety with the Lost Boys while he distracted Hook. Tinkerbell was jealous of Wendy, so she flew too fast for the children to keep up. When she reached the Lost Boys, Tinkerbell told them to try to knock Wendy from the sky. The Lost Boys hurled stones and wooden swords into the air. Wendy lost her balance and began to tumble to the ground just as she was about to crash onto the rocks below. Peter Pan swooped down and rescued her. Peter was angry and charged Tinkerbell with high treason. "Are you guilty or not guilty?" he asked her. Tinkerbell was guilty, and Peter Pan banished her from the island forever. Wendy said, "That's a little bit harsh." "Okay," Peter said, "for a week then." Once Wendy, John, and Michael were safely on the ground, they were eager to explore Neverland. John and Michael marched off into the woods to follow the leader with the Lost Boys, and Peter took Wendy to visit the Mermaid Lagoon. It's a little bit windy out here, so windy. Because I was reading this story to you, and I get it mixed up now. As Wendy met the mermaids, Captain Hook paddled by in a small boat with Tiger Lily, the Indian princess. They were headed to Skull Rock. Peter and Wendy followed them to see what they were up to. Captain Hook had captured Tiger Lily and wanted her to reveal Peter Pan's hideaway. Tiger Lily wouldn't tell Hook anything. Peter Pan wanted to rescue the princess, so he began to play tricks on Hook. Peter flew into the air, taunting and teasing the captain. They battled up and down Skull Rock, spinning and jumping over the rocks. Peter Pan was too fast for Hook and quickly got the better of him. Suddenly, Hook heard a familiar sound. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. His eyes boggled and his teeth chattered. It was the crocodile waiting for him. Captain Hook splashed into the water, and the crocodile chased him all the way back to his ship. Peter Pan rescued Tiger Lily and returned her to their father, the Indian chief. Indian chief, I thank you for rescuing Tiger Lily. I think that's the Indian's little home. Oh, wait. Remember when we saw the map? It was right here. I think it's right there. Do you see? It's the same place but farther away. Back on his pirate ship, Captain Hook was angrier than ever. He thought Peter Pan had made a fool of him, so he devised a plan to get Peter Pan once and for all. Hook heard that Peter Pan banished Tinkerbell from Neverland. Maybe she can lead us to Peter Pan. Captain Hook said. Maybe she can lead us to Peter Pan. Captain Hook said. Tinkerbell sat alone in the woods and was miserable and missed Peter and the Lost Boys, and she watched them dance around the Indian chief campfire. So this is the campfire and they're dancing around. Yay! It didn't take long for Captain Hook to capture Tinkerbell and bring her back to the pirate ship. Hook pretended to be Tinkerbell's friend and tricked her into showing him the way to Peter Pan's hiding place. Tinkerbell made Hook promise not to lay a hand or a hook on Peter. Hook promised, but he was deceitful. After Tinkerbell had showed him the way to the hideout, Hook locked her up in a glass case. I think he locked him in this glass case. After the campfire, Wendy, John, and Michael were ready to return home. The Lost Boys were homesick too. Peter was sad that they would want to leave Neverland. He wanted them to stay and warned them, "You can go back and grow up, but just remember, once you go, you can never come back." Captain Hook and the pirates were waiting in the woods as the children left Peter's highway. The pirates captured all of Peter's friends, Wendy, John, Michael, and the Lost Boys. Hook took them back to his ship and tried to make them become pirates. Captain Hook said they could join up or walk the plank. Peter Pan will save us, Wendy said confidently. Captain Hook and his pirates laughed. They told Wendy that they had left a present for Peter Pan. It was set to explode at 6 o'clock, and that was just seconds away. At the last moment, Tinkerbell escaped and flew to Peter Pan, who warned him about Captain Hook's plan. There was a loud bang and a black dust flew everywhere. Peter Pan climbed out of the ashes and looked for Tinkerbell. She had saved his life! His life! His life! His life! His life! Peter called her name and heard a faint tinkling of her bells deep in the rumble. Peter knew the others needed his help, but he had to save Tinkerbell first. Even though they had agreed, Tinkerbell meant more to Peter Pan than anything in the whole world. Back at Hook's ship, the pirates made Wendy walk the plank. When she reached the end of the board, Wendy closed her eyes and bravely took a final step. Captain Hook listened for a splash, but she didn't hear one. He shouted to his pirates, demanding to know what had happened. Suddenly, Peter Pan flew through the air with Wendy safely in his arms. He had caught her just before she fell into the water. Tinkerbell hovered beside them. This time, "You've gone too far, Hook," Peter shouted. Peter Pan freed John, Michael, and the Lost Boys, and together they battled pirates. Peter flew through the air and lunged at Hook. The captain waved his hook and chased Peter up and down the ship. "Come back, you coward!" shouted Hook. Peter said nobody called him coward and got away with it. After a long and fierce battle, it was clear that Peter had beaten Hook. Peter told him he was free to go, but Captain Hook was a cheat. He made one last lunge at Peter. Hook slipped and fell down into the water below. Tick, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. The crocodile was waiting for him, snapping its jaws. The crocodile swallowed Captain Hook in one gulp. He climbed out, right back out of its mouth, carrying an alarm clock he'd found inside the pirate. The pirates jumped to the rowboat and followed after their captain. Hook disappeared from Neverland, racing through the waters to get away from the hungry crocodiles. Peter set sail on Captain Hook's ship. He understood that his friends wanted to find their way home a sprinkling of pixie dust. Tinkerbell turned the ship into gleaming gold and soared through the sky back to London. Wendy's parents opened their nursery door and found the children asleep. Wendy awoke and pointed up at the moon and started and Peter Pan's pirate ship sailing across it. Her parents started it out the window. Her father said he had a strange feeling he'd seen that ship before. He was beginning to believe. The end. Do you like the story of Peter Pan? At school, my teacher read the whole book. It was a chapter book. It was this big, or something like this. It's very big, anyways. But at school for Halloween, our theme was Peter Pan's a character in the story. My friend was Tinkerbell, but her wings were butterfly wings. But it was cool. And I was Peter Pan's shadow.